always like to ask you a few questions about your book.
Okay.
What was your main motivation for writing it?
Well, a lot of my friends were starting to retire, especially the husbands were starting to retire, and the wives were not happy about it. Either they felt like, oh my God, he's going to be home all the time in my turf, or they thought, he doesn't have enough outside interests. What's he going to do with himself? And more and more, often what had happened with women that I knew is that they had taken some time off in their 30s and 40s to stay home with the children and had gone back to work. And now, as they were getting up into their 60s, they were just at the point in their career where they were happy with the amount of responsibility and the control of their time and things that they were doing. So they were in a good place in their career, just as their husbands were ready to say, okay, I'm done, because they hadn't taken out enough time. So here was this disconnect, men ready to stop and play golf all day or travel or do anything, and here were these women who were all fired up at the height of their career. So it was a real challenge. How was this going to affect people? And I started looking around, and I did some research, and I found out that people who had been married a long time were the largest group of people that were getting divorced. And people think people get divorced after 5, 7, 10 years. All of a sudden, people who've been married 20, 30, 40 years were getting divorced.
Wow, I wonder why.
One of the explanations was they didn't really know each other. After 40 years of marriage, and each one had their own little to-do list. The women were doing this, the men were doing that. They'd see each other,
every now and then.
nighttime, whatever. The kids were also a distraction. The work was a distraction. All of a sudden they said, is this person they're married? And do I have anything in common with them anymore?
Is this a life I'm living?
Right. So I started to look at how retirement was affecting couples, and that's why my research was that sometimes you just need to have separate lives in addition to your conjoined life. So I wrote a book called Too Much Togetherness, Surviving Retirement as a Couple.
And her book is called Too Much Togetherness. And is that the main topic of the book?
Absolutely. It's how one can deal with these issues of being together 24/7 and still keeping up with each other.
And are you married? You are? And is your husband retired?
No, he isn't.
Not retired? Okay.
He's working on it, though.
He's working on it?
Yeah, I don't want him to retire.
You don't want him to retire?
He's a perfect example of somebody in my book that, is his work and golf. And that's not enough. And what do you do when it rains? What do you do when your joints start hurting and you can't play golf so much anymore? People don't understand what that empty calendar in front of you. You say, oh my God, I got up this morning and what am I going to do with my day? And some people have wonderful inner resources. They have things they wanted to do all their lives. You wanted to be a rock musician, you wanted to be a painter, an author, anything like that. That was fabulous. But for some people, they are just at a loss. And especially for men, they're counting on their wives to make these plans for them. And the wives have something else in mind. They have their own lives.
And so if the men are counting on the wives to do it, and the wives aren't doing it, then what are the men going to do?
Well, hopefully they're mature, experienced, educated people that know what to do with themselves. And I can give advice like, find a new community of friends. If your community, a lot of people, their job was their social life. Those were their friends. Those were their buddies.
Really
They
was.
saw every day. Sometimes even on the
After
weekend.
work.
After work, you got it. And if those people are still working, and you're home.
What's going on?
Oh, you can go have a drink with them after work, or maybe you can meet for lunch.
But what
they're
are you
going
going to do in between that time?
Exactly.
That's the question.
So you have to find some purpose in your life, something you're interested in, whether it's volunteering, whether it's finding another job, whether it's going to spend time with your grandchildren, whatever it is, working at the library,
You really do
taking
got to find a
classes.
purpose, though.
You really have, jobs are purpose too. People think jobs are to make money to survive. Jobs
Give you a
things.
sense of, like you're doing something with your life.
You have a purpose in what you're doing, no matter what your job is. You don't have to be a brain surgeon, whatever it is. You have a purpose. You also have a structure. You know where you have to be every day. And that's important.
It really
Especially
is.
when you don't have a structure anymore. And then you have that community that I talked about. Where
Everybody
it gives you
together.
social-
Everybody's
so-
around you.
So all those three things, structure, community, and purpose, you have to make those happen in your retirement as well. So you have to give yourself a structure, whether it's taking a walk every day, going to visit a friend, calling your mother, whatever it is, you have to have a structure. You have to have a purpose, something that means something to you, whether you find it in your religion, in your music, in your writing, in your painting, whatever it is, and then you've got to go make new friends.
You have to, if you don't make new friends, how can you get new friends?
Right, and how can you be an interesting person? You know, if your wife is still working and she comes home and says, well, how was your day? Well,
You didn't do nothing.
I watched TV. I went on the computer. I took out the garbage.
It has to be more than that.
It has to be more than that.
It really does.
Yeah, so the issues of retirement, I think the important thing is that people think it's just going to happen. That you're going to retire on a Friday and Monday morning you wake up and say, oh,
everything's fine.
And so many people say, oh, well, I want to clean out the garage. Or I need to work in the garden. Or I need to clean the gutters. You know what? If you had wanted to do that, you would have done it already. It wasn't your busy life that was keeping you from doing it. Those are just things you don't want to do. So either do them and get them over with and move on, or just forget about it.
Yeah, I also feel like those are just tasks people assign themselves to, to feel like they're doing something.
Right.
Small tasks.
Right, exactly.
And I think sometimes they look at the bigger picture and realize there's more in life than just cleaning house.
This is true.
There really is, And that's where I feel like a lot of people need to understand, okay, you're keeping busy in the house, but where's your life outside of the house?
Well, the biggest problem that I should mention is that couples don't communicate with each other what their plans for retirement really are.
That's important.
That's
you're communicating
very
your
important.
plans, because if they don't know what you're going to do, then
exactly.
How are they going to know anything?
Exactly. Well, the expectations. A guy might say, "Gee, as soon as I retire, I'm going to move up to Alaska, fish all summer long." And his wife may say, "Wait a minute. When I retire, I'm moving to the city and doing all these cultural things I've always wanted to do, and I haven't had time to do. I want to go to museums and concerts and lectures and things like that. I don't want to go to Alaska." Well, where's this just? How come they didn't communicate?
How are they going to get that together? How are they going to bind that together?
Right. I interviewed one couple. The man retired on a Friday, big party, everything. He'd been head of an engineering firm. Monday morning, his wife gets up, she's getting dressed, and he comes into the bedroom and he says, "What are you doing?" She says, "Well, it's Monday, it's my tennis day." And he says, "But I retired." They had never had this conversation. He absolutely thought the fact that he retired, she was going to give up her tennis, give up her friends, give up whatever it was that she was doing. They hadn't communicated. So it's all about communication.
Communication is really significant.
That's why the subtitle of my book is Surviving Retirement as a Couple, because you're not going to survive if you've got these two different goals and two different dreams and you've never discussed it. How can you compromise when you don't know what the other person wants?
How can you? I feel like communication is definitely important though, man. Because without it, you're just left in the open guessing what somebody wants to do.
Exactly.
And your guesses could be completely wrong.
Right, that's right.
Like, for example, I could guess you want to go to Alaska, but really you want to go to San Fran.
Right.
And so there, it's going to cause a conflict. Like, what can we do to make these beliefs work together? And that's one of the main things couples probably have to deal with after retirement. So I would definitely say, communication is key. And then another question for you: why do you think that readers should get your book?
I think they should be prepared for the emotional changes of retirement. Everybody talks about the financial issues of retirement, but nobody talks about how you feel as a person. So many people feel defined by their job. This is what I am.
This is what I do.
I am. Yeah, this is what I do.
I am a photographer. I am a
this,
journalist.
And then if you meet somebody and you're retired and they say, well, what do you do? Because in America, people are pretty nosy and say,
they always ask, what do you do? They always ask the main question, what do you do?
Right. And if you say, I'm retired, they don't want to turn around and walk away, because to them, retirement means old.
Or doing nothing.
Or doing nothing, or lazy, or, uninterested.
It doesn't have to mean that, though.
It doesn't have to mean that. People can reinvent themselves. Actually, my first book is called Reinventing Retirement.
Reinventing Retirement.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about how you want to be as a person. And when I was doing my research for both books, I found out that sociologists really haven't looked at this
concept
of the society. And the conventional wisdom says whatever kind of person you were in your middle age, your youth, and as a human being, you're going to be that kind of person when you retire.
You don't have to be.
Absolutely not true.
You do not have to be the same person.
The go-getter, this executive type and everything, go out there, run things, and when they retire, they don't even know how to write a check. I mean, it's really, really scary. People haven't thought about it because, the dirty, dark secret is what comes after retirement? Death. Nobody wants to think about aging, decline, and death. So, your whole life, you have life stages. You go from youth to,
middle
education, middle marriage, career, retirement. And then what's next? And there's this
that.
fear that is not even conscious that, oh my God, decline, sickness, aging.
Lack of energy.
Right, right.
And
So,
that could really like have a big impact on somebody though.
oh my God,
Just thinking
absolutely.
like, man,
Right,
I'm really losing my
right,
energy.
right.
And like, what would be your advice for someone to work with that, to realize, you know?
To say, it's what you make it. If you retire at 65, you could easily have 25, 30 years ahead of you. And if you don't have
That's 20
plans,
years.
if you don't have plans, if you don't say, well, this is my passion, I want to have something to retire to, not to retire from. That's the most important. Having a passion, something you want to do. And if you can't
Finding
find
your passion.
one, you've got to find it. Look around.
You have to
Start
find your
going
passion.
to lectures. Go to classes. Think about what was it that really interested you when you were 16. I always say my generation, everybody I know wanted to be a rock musician, male and female. Well, it's not too late. You can go buy a guitar.
Buy a
You can
drum
get
set.
lessons online. You can do it.
There's
You can
classes.
You can find other people in the interested in the same thing. Start a little band. Play for yourselves. Play at parties. Maybe then you'll get some gigs at weddings. Who knows? All of these kinds of things. Find a new passion. Something that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. That's the most
Finding a
important
new
thing.
passion. That's really important.
And for couples, it's learning to communicate in a different way. I mean, obviously you communicated all along, hopefully when the kids are growing and everything else, but you have to say, I want to do this now because I fear what's coming next. I mean, when I give lectures about retirement, I talk about people travel. That's the first thing a lot of people do.
Travel.
They say they want to travel.
I want to go to Spain. I want to go to London.
But if you're not physically fit, or if you're starting to feel a physical deterioration, you better go do it now. I mean, I have to tell you, I was in Vietnam.
Now's the time, huh?
I was in Vietnam, and we were going up to see some ancient burial sites and some temples. And the way you get there is you take a boat on the river. So you go down to the river and you negotiate with the boatman, and he says, "Okay, I'll take you there." So you take there, and he pulls over to the side an hour later, and he says, "Okay." And I said, "What do you mean, okay?" And he says, "Well, just go to the top of the hill, and you'll see." So we go to the top of the hill, and there are two Vietnamese men on motorcycles waiting for us. One for my husband, one for me, to take us to these sites. Well, let me tell you,
Two guys on motorcycles, huh?
If I was older, or I was fearful, or I had, bad hips or bad knees, I wouldn't know if I would want to get on the back of a motorcycle and go. And then when you get there, there's 300 steps to climb up to see these temples, things like that.
What are you going to do?
So, what I'm saying is,
300 steps.
Even you go to New York City, you come out of the subway, and the escalator's invariably broken.
Even San Fran.
Exactly. Any place
Look
like
at the
that.
hills.
Right. So what my first advice is, if you're going to travel, don't put it off. Do it now.
Do it now.
Then also my next advice, and this is really important, is so many people say, well, I want to move to be near the grandchildren. So let's say you've lived in one city your whole life, and your children are married, and they've moved off someplace else. If you pick up and move there, you have to realize your grandchildren, maybe they're cute now at 2 and 3, but by the time they're 8, they've got soccer after school, they have music lessons, they have all these Tai Chi, all these things they're doing.
That might
they don't have time
limit
for you.
the time with you.
Exactly, and what's
I've seen that happen several times.
Exactly, and then there you are in a new city where you don't know anybody.
And then on top of that, you got your kids that might be living their own lives.
Exactly.
Your kids might not necessarily make time for you to see their kids.
Right.
And grandparents have to understand that.
That's right.
Like, I have a kid myself, and my dad has to understand that. I'm not always going to be able to make time for him to see my daughter.
Right.
Because I have things of mine I have to take care of, responsibilities.
Right.
And so I feel like that's definitely something to take into consideration as a grandparent.
And especially before you pick up and change your whole life, sell your house and all those things.
Just for your grandkids.
And also you can move to where they are, and then your son-in-law gets transferred, and he's going someplace else, and there you are.
Exactly. Stuck.
So you really think these things through. That's the most important. And communicate with each other, and talk about your fears as well as your dreams.
Talk about your fears,
what are you worried about?
your aspirations.
Exactly.
Talk about what you really want to accomplish.
But plan for your retirement, because it's a big psychological and emotional change. It's not just about, are you going to have enough money? It's about, are you going to be the kind of person you want to be? What are you going to do in the next 20 years?
Emotionally and financially. Because if you're not fit emotionally, then you can't be fit financially. Because you can't really take care of your finances.
Right.
Emotion is first, and then finances are second. That's the main thing I got from this interview. Well, I'd like to thank you for being here with me, Miriam Goodman. This is Miriam Goodman, the author of Too Much Togetherness. This is Ethen Carrell, San Francisco 2012, reporting live.